Hi there, welcome to or welcome back to Tiff Reads Books, where I read books and I talk to you about them. Today, we're going to do a I'm reading it so you don't have to vlog, and I'm going to start reading Ali Hazelwood's Deep End. So I got this because I started seeing all the discourse when it first came out on TikTok of people who were like, it's not spicy enough, oh my god, it's so bland, it's so boring, to the other people that were like, this is the spiciest book I've ever read. I had to put it down because I cannot with how spicy this is. This is so spicy. Why are people wanting this? This is like just straight erotica. And then jumping back to the people being like, listen, this is so tame, that I was like, as a non-romance reader, like I've read a couple this year so far. I'm trying to like dip my toes in the water. I was like, let me try it. I'm so curious. I need to know what the girlies are talking about. I'm a nosy bitch anyway, and I read Ali Hazelwood's Bride, and I didn't hate it. It wasn't for me, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was funny at times. The world building was meh, like if you're a fantasy person, the world building didn't hit, but it wasn't bad, and I did find myself feel very seen as an academic. I did see one person say that she thought people were feeling like it was more spicy because we are talking about the intimate things we are going to do before we do them. We are discussing, because this is a little bit BDSM-y, apparently. So we have to talk about boundaries a lot. We have to talk about consent. We have to be clear and open about our intentions and what we are going to do, and that may be a little more uncomfortable for some people who are not used to seeing those conversations had or being part of one of those conversations. So I thought, as someone who was raised in purity culture and is now approaching the big age of 40, that this might be a good test of how far I've come in my getting rid of all of that and my breaking out of everything that I was taught and making my own opinions about these things. And we'll give it a go. So if you want to come along with me for the ride, this is what we're going to read this weekend. I'm going to try and get through it and get a chunk knocked out, and I will check in with you as I finish things and tell you what's been going on. So this will be full spoilers. If you don't want those spoilers, I'm sorry. This is going to be full spoilers. I have not watched, so a few people that I really like, Carrie Can Read, Rachel, Reads with Rachel, have both put out videos. I think it was in Carrie's wrap-up, and Rachel put out a full video on it, and so I have not watched them yet because I want to read this first, and then I will watch it. I don't care that I'm spoiled, I just don't want my opinions shaded by someone I really like. So, I don't know if I think Carrie's probably don't have spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, check out hers. And if you want spoilers, spoilers live here. So I will spoil this for you. "25 pages in, second mention of 50 Shades. So there's that. Otherwise, it's fine. It's kind of boring so far. We'll see what happens. End papers. Ma'am. Miss Hazelwood. Dr. Hazelwood. Why are we assuming that beer is made in a bathtub? Please explain. Okay, so I'm 40% in. 40%. I'm 40 pages in, which is 10% in. 10% in, and let me tell you about what it's about. Okay, so here's what we have so far. We have a dog getting up because I started talking. He had to leave his bed because he heard me talking. We have... Okay, bye. We have Vandy, whose name is Scarlett Vander something. They call her Vandy. She is a college swimmer. It is her junior year. It's her junior year, and she's on the swim team. She is recovering from a pretty bad injury that she had from a dive gone wrong. So she's a diver, and so she's recovering from this injury. She's in her junior year. She's pre-med, and she's on this dive team. one of her teammates, she's not really close with any of them, and I don't know if this is like standard Ali Hazelwood, like I need to have my main character be like introverted and friendless, but it's fine. So I'm gonna sit up, this is annoying. I sat up so the dog's back. Where I'm at. I'm 10% into this book, so 40 pages. It's 443 pages. She's recovering from an injury, a really bad one apparently, where she took almost her entire sophomore year off to recover, and now she's back, like, medically cleared. She is on this dive team for Stanford, I believe. And she's pre-med. She's struggling with German. She is kind of introverted and doesn't have a lot of friends. And I don't know if this is like standard Ali Hazelwood for like her female main characters, but it's kind of annoying because like her teammates clearly like her, but she's like, oh, nobody can like me. I'm just like, I just don't have a lot of friends because I'm just so academically driven. Look, I didn't have a lot of friends in college because I had to work full time and go to school full time, and I just didn't have time. But I had friends. I had work friends instead of college friends because I spent more time at work than I did doing college stuff. So I mean, I get it, I guess. But she has this one teammate named Pen, which is I think short for Penelope. And Pen is having problems with her boyfriend. And at one like group get together before a practice, Pen sees them arguing and she thinks it's because the boyfriend Lucas, who's on the dive team and is going to be in the 2025, I don't know what year. We're in 2025 right now. He's going to be in some sort of Olympics in Melbourne, apparently. So imaginary future. I don't know what year we're in the book. She thinks that they're having an argument, and they kind of are, and for some reason, with something that has to do with her dad, she's worried that he's like being violent. And so she goes to like interject herself and stop, like, you know, be like, I'm gonna be a human meat shield, is I think what she calls herself. So she finds out it's not like an actual fight like that. It's that Penn doesn't think that the relationship between her and Lucas is working because they're into different things sexually, and this is where we find out that he is into BDSM, and we just call it kink as if that's the only kink that exists, which is kind of odd. But so Vandy invites Penn for coffee to be like, let's talk about this, like I can give you a perspective because I'm into this too, type of thing. So after their conversation, there is a party at the swim coach's house. He coaches the swim team and the dive team. And so, like, Lucas is there as well as the dive team. And apparently, this is why I was like, I need to stop. Because there's two things that happened in here. One, which I probably just showed you the clip of. Our main character Vandy refuses to drink the beer that the coach has made because she imagines it's been brewed in a bathtub. Listen, we're not in like prohibition times, and we all have stoves, and beer is brewed with specific heat requirements, okay? Like, we don't be brewing beer in bathtubs. One of the other girls, I think is Penn, calls it toilet brew. Look, I know we're trying to be funny, but what the hell? So she reveals that her and Lucas broke up, and then she's like, oh my god, I have a genius idea. Vandy, you should have sex with my ex-boyfriend, because you two are into the same thing. And that's the end of the chapter. And I'm like, or I think I'm in the middle of a chapter. I'm like, because the chapter ended with that and then started with that. And I'm like, how the fuck are you this drunk? And I'm just bothered by that. But I'm still bothered about the it must be made in a bathtub comments, because no. Come on, Allie. You're smart. Of course. Of course. So she gets invited to do a undergraduate work on a graduate project, I guess. And of course, the other undergrad student is Lucas. They've already had like a weird tense moment. It's very predictable, but I guess part of that is like what people want when they read romance is some predictability. It follows a plot. I guess it doesn't do it for me. So I'm kind of like disappointed. I don't know. I don't really like the character. I'm hoping she'll build on me, like, or grow on me, but I don't really like her. I don't find her self-loathing charming. Her insecurities. There we go. I don't find her insecurity charming. I can occasionally find insecure characters charming. I don't find hers charming. Um so I don't know. We'll see. I'm 75 pages in. I don't think I'm supposed to be bored, but I'm bored. I'm bored. I will say, this man is actually nice. This man is actually nice, and I didn't expect that. Like, he's a decent human. So, I'll check in more when I get halfway. Okay, here's my quick update on Deep End. I'm 150 pages in. I do want to point out that the cover, I don't know why I keep moving closer to my face instead of this. His hands are supposed to be gigantic. They're not that big compared to hers in this picture. So that's my complaint about this. I said it was boring. So I'm on page 150 and, like, they haven't hooked up yet. They've had like a passionate kiss. Hi, dog. I started talking. He came in. They had like a passionate kiss. So basically, let's see. They're on the same project, and then they kind of got to talking. He was like, basically, he came and found her at a party, and she was like, why are you paying attention to me? And he was like, because I feel like you need attention. And then he was like, look, we're going to do this. If you don't answer me, I'll give you two choices, basically. And he told her, like, say nothing to me right now, and I'll just be your colleague, and that'll be it. And none of this will ever get brought up again. Or you say yes, and we enter negotiations, right? So she thinks about it for like 20 minutes and ends up sending him an email for some reason, even though she has his text. Sends him an email that's like where and when. And so he gives her like a sheet of paper to fill out with her like yeses and nos, basically. And they exchange them. He sees hers and immediately like deep passionate kiss, right? So then when she finally gets up the nerve to read his, she's like, oh my god, we're the same person. We want the same things, only like he wants to be doing them and I want to be receiving them. Okay. Obviously that's how it has to go for the book. But I'm like, where's the conflict in that? Like, where's the conflict? So, page 150. Basically after that, suddenly just with that happening and like their conversation, she's like, oh my god, I feel so much more confident. Like nothing is a problem. And I'm like, I knew that's what was gonna happen. I knew this was gonna happen. She's gonna like meet a man and suddenly she's gonna be able to like deal with all her shit. Which is kind of frustrating, but also like I kind of get the point that this is like heavy-handedly making, which is that being like submissive in this type of like dominant submissive thing can make you like help you deal with the other things in your life that you feel like you have no control over, which is like a typical thing that people say is the reason that some people prefer to be submissive in this type of situation, right? Because someone is giving them the answers, someone is telling them what to do in when they feel like they have no control over other things. I'm just wondering like what the actual plot of this is, because like at least with Bride, which is what I'm going to be comparing this to because it's the other Ali Hazelwood I've read, there's like a plot to the book. There's like this whole mystery thing. The other romance I read, Cat Sebastian's Queer Principles of Kit Webb, there was a plot greater than the romance. I can't figure out what the plot is. I was telling someone on Instagram, we were talking, and she was like, literally, what was the conflict? Like, what was actually happening in the book? And I'm like, so far, I get that we're doing this whole, like, she can't do this one type of dive because of her trauma. I was like, it's giving Zoolander can't turn left. Like, where's the rest of it? Like, I need there to be something bigger than this, so I think it's fine, but I'm bored because there's like nothing really happening and I don't like this character. Her insecurities are like too much for me. Like I'm struggling. I think she's made her too insecure. And that really bothers me. So I don't know. I actually prefer the Penn character, like, which is like this guy, which is Lucas's ex-girlfriend and like her kind of new best friend. I like her better. Also, the roommate seems interesting. Miriam, she's like a wrestling athlete, and I will kind of want to know more about her. Like, uh, Vandy keeps complaining that she, like, her roommate is like horrible. Like, obviously she's not, but she also is. But I'm like, why? I need to know more about this roommate. She sounds interesting. And that's the thing where I struggle with like some romances and stuff, because we have like side characters that would be interesting and we never really get to know about them because it's not about that, it's about the other two characters. But I'm like, I'm kind of bored and I don't know what we're going to do for another 300 pages. 300 more pages. Okay, so figured this is a good spot I need to check in. Page 221. So halfway. Actually, I just realized I stopped at a chapter mark. So let me put my chapter marker, my bookmark in. Okay, so let's talk. Not a lot really has happened. So they hooked up. It was kind of vanilla, honestly. I was like, if this is BDSM, then a lot of people do BDSM. It was honestly, I feel like I can't say, like, it explaining what they actually did on page would get me shadow banned. I would get my video hidden because it's not YouTube appropriate. It really wasn't that crazy though. So that was like, they've hooked up one time in 220 pages. Technically 2 times, but like with a gap in between. So one day. She spent the night and then like, or kind of, they like fell asleep. She got up and went home to her house. Like, well, he was still asleep. She texted him. It was like, I got home safe. Like, had a great time type of thing, whatever. And then she didn't hear from him. And so she assumed he wasn't interested. So then like she accidentally runs into him and his older brother. He's like the youngest of 4. And he's like way younger because he was a surprise, apparently. So she runs into them. And his older brother is like, come hiking with us. And the older brother reveals that Lucas does this thing where he deprives himself of things he really likes. And essentially he was doing that with her. So she did a very good job. And she was like, I'm not a thing for you to toy with. Like, I am a human. I have feelings. That's fucked up what you did. That you like completely ignored me, didn't even say that you needed a bit of space for a little bit to process things, like you didn't communicate. And so then she's like, I'm not putting up with this. And she like ignores him. And then she like does her dives at this like first little like competition. She does her dives. She fails her inward dive again. And so she's having like a depressy day. They go to a party and everyone kind of leaves except for her. And then like Lucas actually like comes to her and like apologizes to her like in person, and she decides to go ahead and forgive him, which acceptable, I guess. I don't know. I don't have strong convictions about that. I don't really care. If you feel you can trust him again, it's not like he cheated or anything or like was like abusive or anything. He just fucked up. And they're young. They're like 21 and 22, right? So fuck ups are gonna happen. And they talked about it afterward. That's the positive. So the thing that's getting to me is her friend Penn broke up with him and gave her the green light. Literally all she thinks about is, what about Penn? Penn ended the relationship. Stop inserting her into it. It's so weird. It is so weird. She has also moved on. She like has a new guy. Why are you trying to always bring her up to him? It's the weirdest fucking thing. Like, because I am old, when my boyfriend and I got together, basically discussions of exes are not off limits for us. We got together. We've been together. This is going to be 3 years. So I was 35 when we got together and he was 38. He's 3 years older than me. So we were old. We know the other person has had plenty of relationships. Like, we're not, oh my God, I wanted you to pretend that you've only been with me. Neither of us are like that. We had both been single for a very long time before we got together. Me on purpose, him just because his work sucks. And I'm giving you my life story. But the point is, like, we're very open about having dated people before and even mentioning names and discussing things that had happened before. We don't constantly bring up the other person's ex. It'll be like, oh, have you ever done this thing? And it'll be like, oh yeah, I did that with my ex once. We went here and here, and then I'll ask him something like, oh, have you ever been to this restaurant? He's like, oh, my one of my exes actually used to really like it, so, but I haven't been there in like 10 years. Those are the types of those things come up, but I'm not just constantly being like, did you do this with your ex? It's so weird. But she's not even doing it out of like jealousy. She's just doing it like, did you act this way with your ex type of thing, which is the weirdest thing to do. I don't know. I didn't even do that when I was that age, so I don't understand. And it's starting to get to me. So that's my complaint. It's starting to get to me. But I will finish it. I do think... I think contemporary romances, if I'm going to like read romances, if I'm going to try and branch out and get rid of some of my biases, which is what I'm trying to do. Okay, and so, hi buddy, the dog came over because I got animated. If I'm going to try and read contemporary romances, I think they need to be, I need to find the right writer, and there needs to be something else into the plot. Maybe just contemporary ones and modern ones like aren't gonna work for me. Maybe I just need like the paranormal or the fantasy, because honestly, Mercy Thompson is kind of like a romance, and I enjoy those. There's like a little Scooby-Doo element in them, but they're largely a romance. I don't know, man. This is a really bad angle. I'm going to try and finish. I finished work today. I'm going to try and finish this. Listen to me. This is one time where I will say I don't care if there's not a lot of peer-reviewed evidence. We don't study women enough to say that just because there's not enough peer-reviewed evidence, this is not a thing. As someone who gets chronic UTIs, please always do this. Always. Good Lord. Listen, I cannot do another 170 pages of her trying to convince him that he's still in love with his ex when it... Why? Why are we doing that? I will not stand for this calling academic conferences boring. They're actually some of the most fun I've ever had, and I've made a lot of friends at them. Academic conferences are not boring. Giving the presentation sucks, but academic conferences are not boring. Okay, I am going to read 8 more pages, and then I will catch you up at page 300. Okay, it took till page 300, but we have some character growth. Actually, it was like just before that. So, let's see. Where was I before? Lucas wasn't talking to her. He apologized. They were at a party. They left the party. They hooked up. Yes, they hooked up. And then I stopped recording and I went and finished reading. So they hooked up, and then things kind of went back to normal for her life. She's trying to fix her inward dive thing. She gets her MCAT results, and she kind of has like a mental breakdown. Starts spiraling, so she tells the coach she's sick, and she leaves for like one of their events basically and goes home. So Lucas finds her, and she kind of like breaks down and like sobs into him for an extended period of time, where he basically tells her what happened with his family. And so there was like a whole thing where he didn't want his mom brought up. His mom passed away apparently when he was 14, and he wasn't home for it, and so he went through this whole mental struggle of it because he was like away swimming, and so it kind of broke him for like a year, and he took some time off swimming. And this kind of clicks something into her brain, so she decides, after she like cries herself to sleep and sleeps for like a couple hours, that she needs to wake up in the night and go to the pool. Lucas has keys, so he agrees begrudgingly because he doesn't think it's safe. We love a safety worried king. And he takes her to the pool, and she manages to do a sloppy but successful inward dive. So she's like, I'm fixed. And then she discovers the next day at practice that she's not fixed. But she's not a sobbing, weepy, angry mess over the fact that she's not fixed, and decides to actually open up with her therapist, because apparently the day that she injured herself, not only did she just injure herself massively, like she had like shoulder surgery and like a bunch of other things happened to her in this like badly like formed dive. It was because the night before, her abusive father, who she has a restraining order against, emailed her to tell her he'd been watching her dives. And then her boyfriend, right before the meet, called her to break up with her, to tell her that he was interested in somebody else, and he broke up with her right before the meet. So she had all of that going on, and then she like fucked up her dive. And so she decided to open up with her therapist about all those other things. And so now she's working on like not being a perfectionist, which is good as someone who is a perfectionist and did not go to therapy to deal with all of my insecurities and people pleasing issues until something happened and I like crashed out hard. Good on her, because I was 31 before I dealt with it, and she's 21. She's 10 years ahead of me on dealing with this. So good for her. She's 10 years ahead of me. So that happened, and then she's like, her and Lucas hooked up again, and then he left, and now like a month has passed because he was like bouncing from like thing to thing. And so she was also like, she's been competing, she's been improving, and right now she's at this meet where it's like a qualifier, but because everyone else on her team is already qualified because it took her a little while to get her shit together, she's like at this qualifier with like the junior varsity team instead. And two of them have just told her that Penn, who is like her best friend right now, is a backstabbing bitch. And so she doesn't want to believe it. And I mean, it would make sense that there's rumors like that, because there's like this whole thing about how Lucas was like, said something to someone about how him and Penn had been through a lot together. Like he'd been there for her just as much as she'd been there for him. So I'm sure there's some reveal about Penn that is going to happen, that like something happened, somebody was like, one of her teammates was injured and she got blamed for it, and it was like a whole thing. I'm sure that's kind of what's going to happen. I am kind of pleased that it wasn't like Lucas, it wasn't fucking Lucas that fixed her. It was Lucas forcing her to have a conversation about her feelings that made her be willing to have a conversation about her feelings. I think that's acceptable in terms of growth, because I really don't like the, oh, a relationship fixed me trope, but I do like that someone who has kind of wormed their way into being close to you forces you to address something and then to get it addressed with somebody who can actually help you. I do enjoy that, because I feel like that mirrors real life a little bit. So still think that their exploration of BDSM, which they just keep referring to as kink, it's very like submissive dom kink, that it's not necessarily BDSM in its entirely, at least from my understanding. I don't know. Is very kind of just above the edge of vanilla, which somebody said to me in one of my they commented on my Instagram post, because I posted that I was reading this, and they said that the complaints that it not being spicy enough or not like BDSM-y enough is kind of unfair, given that it's two young people who it's their first exploration of it. So maybe if they were 28 and had some experience, it might be a little bit more on the like darker side of things. And I was like, that is a fair assessment. These, to be fair, each of them are only with the second person they've ever been with. And when I put it in that context, that's fair. It's fair. It's fair. Putting it in the context of neither of them have ever done this. Neither of them, they've only each been with one person each. This is only the second person they've hooked up with. That is fair. So I think people took some things that were said about this book and expected it to be way more like intense. But I do think that the stuff that, I don't know why I keep putting the book on my head like this, the stuff that happened in Bride was just as like dom sub associated. Like I don't, not necessarily dom sub, but it was, this isn't even really that. I feel feel like I'm going to reveal too much about myself. I don't feel like this is that, like, oh my God. What's the word? I don't feel like, oh my God, that's such, like, unvanilla. That's so, like, spicy sexual content. Like, oh my God, the things they are doing are so pearl clutchy. Like, I feel like a little more pearl clutchy in Bride at times. So I feel like the marketing on this missed the mark. My phone is here acting like we're in like a low light scenario for some reason. Okay, I'm getting there. I'm on page 368. Okay, so 80 pages left. 80-ish pages left. So they had their like competition in Amsterdam, and their relationship is like starting to inch towards like an actual committed relationship. They're like talking about it and stuff, and I may have peeked at like the last chapter because I really don't care. It's still like okay. The like kinkiest thing that they do is like edging. I don't know if I can say this. Like, it's literally like their BDSM is that he's big and she has to try and take it all. That's literally it. I'm very confused about, like, and then she's like, oh my God, I'm so depraved. Oh my God, I'm so depraved. I get it. I don't know if I remember if I said this here or just to my friend, but I was having a chat with someone on Instagram about it, and she was like, I mean, to be fair, they're like kids. It's their like kids. They're 21 and 22. It's their first time doing something like this, like blah blah blah. You know, it's not gonna be wild border pushing. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I just don't get why everyone like lost their mind over it. I don't feel that this is any more spicy or less spicy, less graphic or more graphic than Bride that Ali Hazelwood also wrote. So even if I'm comparing within authors, like I haven't read her other stuff, I'm probably not going to. Like, this is kind of me, this whole thing is me trying to push myself out of my comfort zone and trying to be like, do I not like this genre, or is it internalized misogyny, right? I'm trying to like undo these things and unlearn these things. So I'm trying different things this year. I'm not really a big fan of this book. It's not terrible. It's fine. So anyway, they're about to start a relationship. We're gonna go do Olympic trials. I've got 80 pages left. I'm trying to finish it tonight. Okay, I do identify with this. They're at a meet, and it's the NCAA championships. And they just realized that their professor, doctor, that they're doing a biology project for is actually married to one of the other professors. And I definitely resonated with that moment. During my master's, we kind of guessed there was like a couple of couples that were in the department, being like new to the department and stuff. We didn't really know. Me and like my whole cohort. Near the end of the year, middle of the year, we found out that like one of like the hardest professors and one of everyone's favorite professors were married. And then like the next year, as I started my PhD, I found out that like there were like 7 couples that were like long-term couples in the department, and everyone's minds were blown. So yeah, it kind of feels a little bit like that. So I do get that feeling, and I have a feeling Ali Hazelwood, being a scientist who apparently is like a professor, does also has been through that feeling. I have 30 pages left. I'm gonna go make the dog dinner. He's been complaining for 3 hours about wanting dinner. So I'm gonna go make him dinner, and then I'm gonna try and finish this after that. I really just want it to be done. I'm really over it. The drama, like, there's been no third act breakup, which is good, but we've had like, because I don't like third act breakups, but we've had like our relationship is on the rocks because of our mutual friend / his ex-girlfriend, because the main character, Vandy, she just feels like terrible. She feels terrible because the ex keeps like wanting him back. Well, she has, if you heard that grumbling, that's the dog. not keeps wanting him back, but she has announced that she wanted him back, and then she got distracted, and then she had a false positive drug test, and yeah, so she's a mess, which feels very accurate for being 21, 22. I think she's 22 because I think she's a senior. I think she's a year older. Being a hot mess your senior year feels very accurate, as someone who crashed out, burnt out multiple times between the ages of 21 and 23. It feels very accurate. So honestly, I think the other character is a little more interesting, but she's kind of getting to be like a jealousy type thing where, I don't know, it's weird. I get it. She was in a relationship with this guy for like 6 years, from like 16 to 22, and so she feels like a little possessive over him while at the same time like wanting him to be happy and acknowledging that their relationship didn't work, but also like missing their relationship. And also it's been 8 months and they still have not told like the larger like swim group that they're broken up, so that's fucking weird. Yeah, so anyway, I'm gonna go feed the dog. I did it. I finished it. I'm so proud of myself. So, I mean, it ended with them engaged. There was like a big event at the NCAA championships, right? So this is where she had her big injury. This should have been her biggest roadblock. Not only did she like succeed, she killed it. So while she's supposed to be like announced as like getting her gold medal, she's supposed to be getting her gold medal, and she gets like Lucas comes up to like congratulate her, and he like kisses her. The rest of the team, the diving team, sees it and they're like, oh my god, how could you? And so he makes like Penn admit that they've been broken up for almost a year, that she is the one who wanted them to break up. And then she like crashes out and accuses Vandy of like trying to steal her man and her life. She's like, you got my title and you got my man, and like crashes out. And so Vandy leaves. She just like fucks up. She's like, I can't deal with this right now. It's like Lucas is like professing his love to her. It's the one time she uses their safe word. Of course, is because she's like can't handle the emotional thing, right? So she goes home, spends some time with her stepmom, and Penn comes to like apologize to her in person, and then she flies to Sweden to be like, oh my god, we need to have this conversation face to face, grand gesture, all this stuff, right? And then it ends the book with them in med school and engaged. Well, apparently he's not in med school. She's in med school, and he's like, it says a few years later, and he's got an MD and a PhD 3 years later, and I was like, that's fast work, my guy. That's fast work. So anyway, yeah, it was fine. The end of the book I actually enjoyed more. I've learned something about myself in this. One is that we're not going to talk about that part. But 1A is that I really don't care if there is smut in books. Like, I can take it or leave it. So, like, if you like it, keep having it. I can skim it. Like, I don't really care. I don't really care for it. It's fine. Like, it's fine. To me, it doesn't make the book any better or any less. Yeah, I didn't skim it in this one because I wanted to see what the pearl clutching was about, because everyone was like, oh my god, and like pearl clutching, right? So I wanted to know, like, what was in there? What level were we dealing with? So I don't think it was a higher level than Bride, or when I read The Queer Principles of Kit Webb, or when I read a romance novel in like 10th grade that my best friend gave me and was like, here's a Nora Roberts. It was like some sort of bog thing. That was more descriptive, and me being like 17 was like, oh my god. Like, but me as an adult, these things are fine. Like, I don't think it was that like crazy. However, thing 2 is that the level of exploration of BDSM that they had, I keep doing this because I'm like trying to shift the pillow that I'm leaning on. I'm not in that community, so I can't say whether this is or isn't But it felt very mild. It felt very mild. Um, a, I think I said it earlier, so I'm not going to say it again. A lot, maybe I will say it and I'll edit it out earlier. A lot of the like kink in it and like the BDSM thing was just he's very big and it was how much of him can she handle. That was kind of it. And then like a control. It's like unless she gives the safe word, which their safe word was stop, and I was like okay, fine. They explained why they chose that one, but whatever. Unless she gave the safe word, it was like he had the entire control over what they did and when they did it, basically, unless she like put up a hard boundary over it. That was pretty much it. And I was like, that feels so not that much of an exploration of BDSM, but maybe it's like because I read Kushiel's Dart, and we're not going to get into my personal experiences of people, but because I read Kushiel's Dart and like that whole series where a lot worse stuff happens. Like we're talking blades and whips and like being tied up on a wheel and like all sorts of stuff. That one had a lot of shit happening in it, and I guess that level explicitness of how things were described in sexual terms in that book was less. Like we didn't have descriptions of like being inside of people, like and like how many pumps it took type of thing, right? God, I'm glad I'm not monetized. So anyway, things about this. It's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna give it like a 3 because I didn't hate it, but I wouldn't read it again. It's not badly written. The size of his hands were mentioned a few times in the beginning, but I think that's just because it's a joke now that's how she always writes her characters. He was described so many times as like big and Swedish a lot. A lot. like a lot. But I don't think other than that the writing was fine. It was easy to follow. Hiccup. I didn't really care for the characters on like a deeper level, but I didn't hate them. I was getting really annoyed with her insecurities. I think we probably could have chopped like 100 pages off of this of her insecurities. But after like page like 350, they kind of stopped because there wasn't really a whole lot of her insecurities today because I read like 100 pages today. So it's fine. Will I read another Ali Hazelwood? Probably not. Do I still think romance is not for me? Probably. Do I think that is because of internalized misogyny? Not so much. I just think it's that I need more plot. I need a bigger thing to keep me entertained. I think I just need more. So some of my friends want me to try some historical romances or some different romanticities than what I've read. Because as I have said, so far, I have 2 categories of romance books that I have liked. And that is 1, lesbian yearning. And 2, T. Kingfisher's Romantasy. So that's it. That's all the things where I've been like, yes, more. So I just need a bigger plot. So anyway, I'm going to end this here. This was fine. It was definitely not, from a non-romance reader, this was not as spicy as I was expecting it to be based on so many of the reactions that I saw. So let me know your thoughts of it. I am not going to go get, like, cute to end this video because I'm actually just going to shower and go to bed. So, thanks for sticking around with me. Let me know your thoughts on this. I'm very curious. I'll see you next time with something else.